Welcome, dear learners. This lecture, Gender and Religion, has been developed based on the selected references available. It is an important point to emphasize that to understand the nexus between religion and culture, we must know what constitutes religion stronger in a culture, because the lifestyles of a community may be understood by receiving the resources from our tradition, which constitute the whole knowledge system of a community. Further, it reveals the role and contribution of gender and religion in particular. At this context, the whole lesson matter has been focused on women and religion in particular. Shall we now go to the topic? Dear learners, as objectives of this lecture, learners will enable to understand the relations of gender and religion in everyday life, to discuss the religion with the help of gender as case study, to understand the different concept of religion pertaining to culture. In this lecture, we will be dealing with the concepts feminist theology, women and primitive religion, women and Indian religious tradition, women and Christianity, women and Islam. The field of women and religion explores the role of women within various religious traditions, including their historical participation and current engagement. It involves analyzing the gender roles and expectations that are established within religious teachings and practices. Additionally, this area of study investigates how religion has been utilized to reinforce patriarchal systems that have granted men more power and authority over women. It also looks at how religious doctrines portray gender and influence societal attitudes towards women. In general, the relationship between religion and women is shaped by the cultural and historical context in which religious traditions exist. For centuries, women and religion have played an interconnected and significant role in shaping the societal fabric of our lives. The issue of women's role in religion has been complex and multifaceted, with varying interpretations and practices across different religious traditions and communities. While some religions promote the equality and empowerment of women, others perpetuate gender-based discrimination and marginalization. This lecture will examine the relationship between women and religion, exploring both the ways in which religion can empower and oppress women. One of the most prominent issues in the relationship between women and religion is the impact of religious teachings on women's health and well-being. Religious teachings often have a significant impact on women's sexuality and reproductive rights. Some religious traditions view women's sexuality as something that needs to be controlled or repressed, leading to restrictions on women's sexual behavior and reproductive choices. In some cases, religious teachings have been used to justify forced marriages and honor killings, which have serious negative consequences for women's health and well-being. However, many religious traditions promote practices such as meditation and prayer, which have positive effects on mental health and well-being. Another important issue in the relationship between women and religion is the role of women in religious leadership. In many religious traditions, women have been excluded from leadership roles within the clergy or other religious institutions. This exclusion has often been based on patriarchal interpretations of religious texts, which have been used to justify the exclusion of women from positions of power and authority. However, there are also many examples of women who have played important leadership roles within religious traditions, challenging traditional gender roles and promoting gender equality within their communities. In some cultures and historical periods, women have played significant roles within religious traditions, serving as spiritual leaders and promoting gender equality. The feminist theology Feminist theology is a crucial concept in the discourse on women and religion. It is a movement within religious studies that aims to challenge and transform traditional religious beliefs, practices, and institutions from a feminist perspective. In response to the exclusion of women's voices and experiences from mainstream religious discourse, feminist theology emerged in the 1960s and 1970s. This movement has influenced a broad range of religious traditions including Christianity, Judaism, Islam and Buddhism, and has contributed to the development of new religious movements and practices that are explicitly feminist and inclusive. Feminist theologians used to seek to uncover the ways in which patriarchal structures and values have shaped religious thought and practice, and to develop alternative interpretations and practices that are more inclusive and empowering for women. Key themes and concerns of feminist theology include the reclamation of women's spiritual authority and leadership, the recognition of the diversity of women's experiences and in identities, the critique of patriarchal representations of God and divine power, and the development of ethical and social justice frameworks grounded in feminist values. Women and primitive religion. The term primitive religion is often used to describe the religious beliefs and practices of indigenous or traditional societies which are characterized by animistic, polytheistic and or shamanistic elements. It is important to note that there is no single primitive religion in Indian subcontinent, and the term can be problematic as it reinforces colonialist and Eurocentric biases. Moreover, it is important not to romanticize or idealize traditional societies which can be characterized by poverty, conflict and social inequality. The role of women in such societies is diverse and can vary depending on the cultural context and historical period. In some traditional societies, women occupy important roles as healers, spiritual leaders and cultural bearers. For example, the Badaha people of Tamil Nadu highly respect women for their knowledge of traditional medicines and their central role in community healing rituals. Similarly, among the Lepcha of Sikkim, women are responsible for transmitting cultural knowledge and values to the next generation and are recognized as powerful spiritual forces. However, in other traditional societies, women may face significant constraints and limitations on their agency and autonomy. Women in many indigenous communities are excluded from participating in certain religious ceremonies and are subject to strict gender roles and expectations. In some cases, women may be viewed as impure or unclean during certain phases of the menstrual cycles or after childbirth, leading to various forms of ritual seclusion or isolation. Women and Indian religious tradition. India is a diverse country with a rich history of multiple religions, including Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism, the Sanatana Dharma and Sikhism, each with their own distinct gender norms and practices. However, the influence of religion on gender roles and expectations in India varies depending on the community and geographical location. The role of women in Indian religious traditions has been a topic of discussion and debate for centuries and practices across various religions and communities. Women and Hinduism. Hinduism, a religion deeply rooted in tradition and culture, has historically placed women in subordinate position to men. Although women are revered for their maternal and nurturing qualities and seen as goddesses, they have also faced various forms of discrimination and marginalization, particularly in education, employment and property rights. The caste system, which is integral to Hinduism, has significantly impacted the lives of women, with those from lower caste facing greater discrimination and barriers to social mobility. Hinduism portrays the ideal woman as a devoted wife and nurturing mother who is obedient and subservient to her husband and male family members. Women are expected to adhere to traditional customs such as wearing the Mangal Shudra, means the wedding necklace, and Sindoor vermilion as symbols of their marital status. Modesty and chastity are highly valued, and any deviation from these norms is seen as a moral failing. Manusmriti, an ancient Hindu text from the 2nd century BCE, means before Common Era, is a significant legal and moral code in Hinduism. However, its treatment of women is controversial, with the text promoting strict and discriminatory rules regarding women's roles and behavior in society. Manusmriti assigns a lower social status to women and places them under the authority of male relatives throughout their lives. It also prescribes stringent rules for women's conduct, such as prohibiting them from speaking loudly or laughing in public. Women who do not comply with these rules face punishments such as physical abuse and exclusion from social and religious ceremonies. The text also justifies the practice of sati, where widows are expected to immolate themselves on their husband's funeral pyres as a way to demonstrate their loyalty and devotion to their husbands. Women in Bhakti movement. The Bhakti movement was a Hindu religious movement that emerged in South India during the medieval period and spread throughout India, emphasizing the worship of personal god or goddess and promoting a direct emotional connection between the devotee and the divine. Women played a significant role in the movement, with women from all castes and social classes participating in religious practices such as singing, dancing, and poetry. Prominent women poets and saints of the Bhakti movement include Karaikal Ammai, Andhal, Akka Mahadevi, Mirabai, and Lal-Ded. The Bhakti movement offered a unique space for women to express their devotion outside of traditional patriarchal structures, enabling them to create and express their own spiritual experiences through artistic mediums. Some women even challenged social norms by renouncing traditional roles and becoming wandering ascetics. Nonetheless, it is crucial to acknowledge that the Bhakti movement was not entirely egalitarian, and gender-based discrimination and exclusion still existed within certain communities. Despite their limitations, the Bhakti movement provided a platform for women to participate in religious practices and express their devotion in ways that challenged traditional gender roles. Devadasi system, which is very much influential system. Another significant institution to discuss in Hinduism is the Devadasi system, where women played a central role. The Devadasi system is a medieval religious practice in Hindu tradition, where girls and women are dedicated to serving a deity or temple. Once considered respectable, it has now become a form of sexual exploitation and slavery, with girls as young as 4 or 5 years old forced into the profession by their families from marginalized communities. These girls are expected to serve as temple dancers, singers, or sex workers, subjected to physical and emotional abuse while providing sexual services to temple priest or higher caste man. Although illegal since the 1950s, the Devadasi system still persists in many parts of India due to its cultural and religious roots and lack of political will to enforce laws and policies. Organizations and activities are working to eradicate the practice of raising awareness, promoting gender equality, and providing support and rehabilitation to affected girls and women. Efforts include educational programs for girls and their families, counseling, legal aid, vocational training, and advocacy campaigns. However, ongoing action and collaboration between government, civil society, and affected communities are needed to end this harmful practice once and for all. Women and Buddhism. Buddhism is an ancient world religion that originated in India and has spread across Asia and beyond. Early Buddhism recognized women as equal to men in terms of their spiritual potential and capacity for enlightenment. However, as Buddhism spread to different regions and cultural contexts, women's roles and opportunities within the religion began to vary widely. Despite this, in Buddhism, women have traditionally been able to take monastic vows and lead spiritual lives as bhikkhuni or fully ordinated Buddhist nuns. Initially, women were not allowed to be ordinated, but this changed during the Buddha's time when he established the order of bhikkhunis. Mahaprajapati Gautami, the Buddha's aunt and foster mother, is one of the most famous examples of women's leadership within Buddhism, having become the first woman to be ordained as a Buddhist nun. The ordination of bhikkhunis was a significant milestone for women in Buddhism, as it allowed them to fully participate in the monastic community and attain the same level of spiritual development as their male counterparts. Bhikkhunis remain active in the Buddhist community today, teaching, practicing, and upholding Dharma. Nevertheless, the history of bhikkhunis in Buddhism has not been without controversy, with some traditions discontinuing the ordination of women while others continue to maintain the lineage. Recently, there have been efforts to promote gender equality and women's empowerment within Buddhism, including the promotion of feminist and inclusive interpretations of Buddhist texts and teachings. Additionally, many Buddhist women have become leaders in social justice movements, advocating for issues such as gender equality, human rights, and environmental protections. Women and Jainism. Jainism, another ancient Indian religion, is based on the teachings of Mahavira, a contemporary of Buddha. Like Buddhism, Jainism emphasizes nonviolence, compassion, and respect for all living beings. Jainism also places a great emphasis on gender equality and the empowerment of women. Within the Jain tradition, women are recognized as capable of achieving the same level of spiritual attainment as men, and there are numerous stories of women who have achieved spiritual liberation. Women have always had the opportunity to take monastic vows and lead spiritual lives as Jain sadhvis or nuns. The Jain community has a rich history of women spiritual leaders, including Acharya Gundkund and Acharya Hemachandra. However, like many religious traditions, Jainism has been influenced by cultural attitudes towards gender and women's roles. Historically, women in Jain communities have been confined to traditional roles within the home and have had limited opportunities for education and employment. In recent years, the Jain community has made efforts to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. These efforts include the establishment of women's rights organizations, educational opportunities for women, and the promotion of inclusive and feminist interpretations of Jain texts and teachings. Women and Sikhism. Sikhism was established in the 15th century in the Common Era by Guru Nanak in the Punjab region of India. Like other religions, Sikhism has a distinct stance on gender equality and women's empowerment. Women have played a significant role in shaping the religion and its practices throughout Sikh history. Sikh teaching emphasizes the equality of all human beings irrespective of gender and condemn discrimination and inequality based on gender. Sikhism recognizes that women possess the same potential as men to achieve spiritual enlightenment and encourages them to actively participate in all aspects of Sikh religious and cultural life. One of the most prominent examples of women's leadership in Sikhism is the story of Mai Bhago, a warrior and Sikh saint who led a group of Sikh soldiers against the rivalry rulers in the 18th century of the Common Era. Her courage and leadership are reverent in Sikh history and continue to motivate women in the community today. In Sikhism, women have the freedom to participate in all religious ceremonies and practices, including reading the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh holy scripture. Women can also become Granthis or leaders of the Sikh community, and many women have held leadership positions within the Sikh community, such as Mata Sahib Kaur, who played as an essential role in forming the Khalsa, the community of the committed Sikhs. Despite the emphasis on gender equality in Sikhism, women within the community have faced challenges and struggles. Some cultural and traditional practices have restricted women's role and opportunities. There have been instances of gender-based discrimination and violence within Sikh families and communities. Nonetheless, the Sikh community has been proactive in addressing these issues and promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. Women and Islam. Islam is the second largest and an important religion in India, and it has played a crucial role in shaping gender norms and practices. However, the relationship between Islam and women is a complex and multi-layered one, and it has been the subject of much debate and controversy. While Islam recognizes the essential quality of men and women before God and affirms the inherent dignity and worth of every human being, regardless of gender, the interpretation of religious texts and traditions vary widely among Muslim communities. Scholars argue that Islam has a more egalitarian view of gender than Hinduism. The Quran and Hadith contain numerous passages that emphasize the rights and responsibilities of women, including the right to education, work, property ownership, and legal protection. However, the reality is that Muslim women in India face many of the same challenges as their Hindu counterparts. They have limited access to education and employment opportunities and face discrimination based on their gender. In Islam, women are seen as equal to men in terms of their spiritual potential and capacity for worship. However, in some Muslim communities, women have faced restrictions on their mobility, dress, and participation in public life. The hijab and burqa have become common symbols of Muslim women's identity, and while some Muslim women chose to wear them as a sign of religious and cultural identity, others see them as symbols of oppression. Debates around the interpretation and implementation of Islamic law with regard to issues such as divorce, inheritance, and child custody have also been prevalent. Despite the challenges faced by Muslim women in India, there is a growing movement of Muslim women who are challenging patriarchal interpretations of Islamic teachings and advocating for gender equality within their communities. These women are breaking stereotypes and emerging as leaders in their own right. Women and Christianity. Christianity has a long and complex history in India dating back to the 1st century of the Common Era with the arrival of the Apostle Thomas. However, Christianity gained popularity in India during European colonization, and its influence on gender norms and practices cannot be ignored. The various denominations and traditions of Christianity in India range from the ancient Syrian church to the more recent Pentecostal and evangelical movements, each with its own views and practices regarding the role of women in the church and society. Christian teachings in general emphasize the essential equality and dignity of men and women as created in the image of God. The Bible features many stories of women who played important roles in the history of salvation, such as Mary, the mother of Jesus, and the Mary Magdalene, a witness to the resurrection. Christian teachings also stress the importance of love, compassion, and service, which are considered central to the Christian way of life. However, similar to other religions and cultures, Christian women in India have faced discrimination and marginalization, such as limited access to education, employment opportunities, and decision-making processes. These challenges are compounded by the intersection of gender with other forms of oppression, including caste, class, and ethnicity, further limiting women's opportunities and agency. Despite these challenges, many Christian women and men in India are actively working to promote gender equality and justice both within the church and in wider society. These efforts include establishing women's groups and in networks, advocating for legal and policy reforms, and promoting women's leadership and empowerment. In a nutshell, the relationship between women and religion in India is intricate and diverse, with various interpretations and practices across different religious traditions and communities. Although some religious teachings have been used to justify gender-based discrimination, there are also numerous instances of women who have advocated for gender equality within their religious communities. India's religious and cultural diversity contributes to the complexity of gender roles and expectations, with women often facing both subordination and reverence in different religious traditions. Ultimately, promoting gender equality within all religious traditions is necessary, and it is our responsibility as a society to challenge harmful interpretations of religious teachings and ensure equal opportunities and agency for all women. I hope you all must have enjoyed the session and it may have enriched the knowledge on religion and culture, particularly gender and religion. Dear learners, we will meet with another schedule. Thank you and all the best.